guys? My name is Brandon, and welcome to Audio Addiction, where you can find latest album reviews, you can find our band interviews, and you can find live coverage of the concerts that we get. I was able to get Grayscale set from As It Is when I saw their headliner a few days ago. I will be posting their set this upcoming week, so be on the lookout for that. Also, we have a few other things. Typical reviews are going to be going up. I have a few albums I'm getting excited to do. Definitely check out the one previous to this one, Lilac Lungs. It was really great, and I think it's a highly recommended album to check out, at least in my opinion, so definitely give that one a listen. Also, if you enjoy what we do, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure to hit that like button as well. And tonight, we're going to be talking about Grayscale's new record, Adornment.
Wanna go, I wanna go, run from this panic, I need the unknown, I've had enough, I've had enough.
So, I have heard of this band before. I know they are popular to my area. I live near the Philadelphia area, and I know that's where their band kind of started. But for some reason, I guess I didn't really kind of hear about them. I more recently heard about them since they signed to Fearless pretty recently, and then they were putting out this record. But for some reason, just me being in the scene, I guess maybe it was just something that didn't pass me by, or maybe they were a part of the underground scene. But you know, I was really excited to stumble upon this band, and I'm excited that they were picked up by Fearless, certainly. But I did check out their last record. I really enjoyed it a lot, and I felt like this was another great continuation on what they were already doing. If you want to pick up Adornment, you can actually pick it up early. If you are going to any of the As It Is shows, they have it at the merch table. So if you are interested in picking it up, a physical version of it, they will have it at the merch table. So definitely go pick that up, go support them. I picked it up. It's actually up in my room, along with my Grayscale shirt that I bought for this. But I'm going to go through all the tracks, give you my thoughts on it, give you my pros and cons on the whole thing, and then I'm just going to give it a rating at the end of the review. So let's get into the first track. It is Let It Rain. This one's definitely one of my favorite tracks off the record. It has this sort of upbeat vibe to it, and that's what I really enjoy about that. It has some essence of pop punk, pop rock, rock, indie, and anything in between that. Even a little bit of post-hardcore, surprisingly enough. But getting back to this track, again, it has this sort of upbeat vibes to it. Has almost that sort of story so far vibe to it, which I really enjoy. I enjoy that band a lot, so that was definitely cool to point out and kind of have a comparison to base them off a little bit. The chorus is definitely super catchy in my opinion, and I'm definitely liking the vocalist's tone. It kind of ranges in between like Ryan Key from Yellow Card, rest in peace, and also like Parker Canyon from Story So Far. So anywhere in that sort of vocal vicinity, that's where Grayscale's vocalist kind of sounds, in my opinion. But I do like his tone a lot. I know he keeps kind of to, I would say, the lower portion of the register, but he can definitely belt some notes. Really digging the layered vocals and the harmonies. I think they are just a great addition to any sort of track, and it kind of adds this sort of ambience to it, and just additions to the overall track that make it a little bit more exciting. There's a little bit more thought into it, so I really enjoy that. Instrumentation wise, it's really solid. It has, again, this sort of alternative, almost pop punk sort of rock feel to it, which I really enjoy, and I think that this is a great opener track. It kind of gives you an overall theme of how the record's going to sound, with some deviation, but for the most part, they kind of keep it around to this sort of, I guess, sound almost. So we'll move into track number 2, which is Come Undone. This features Patty Walters of As It Is, ironically enough. But I'm really liking the vocal guitar intro. That's something that I've always really dug. I think it's a tried and true sort of combination. This one definitely has this sort of Yellow Card feel to it, as I was mentioning earlier about just vocals. This one definitely has, vocally wise, just that Yellow Card vibe, as well as instrumentally definitely has that sort of Yellow Card influence to it. Definitely like the lead lines in the chorus. I think that's something that I always look for, especially just guitar wise. Is something that I avidly listen for. So I really enjoy that. I feel like the addition of Patty was always a good touch, and I think their vocals balance very well together. I know Patty sort of has this almost like nasally sort of high voice, but I really enjoy it at sometimes, and I felt like in this track he really accented Grayscale's vocals and vice versa. So I really think they balance off each other very well. I also like the acoustic guitar mix through the electric guitar as well. I think I definitely like the balance between the two as well in terms of guitar wise. Also, I feel like the finger picking sort of stuff is just a cool little additive, at least in my opinion, and I think it adds a little bit of diversity to the track overall. And then so I really enjoyed this track a lot. I think it's definitely one of the more diverse tracks for sure in terms of instrumentals, and I really dig that. So we'll move it into track number three, which is Slipping Away, one of my favorite tracks off the record as well. Really liking that sort of ambient intro where it transitions into the drums. I think that's a really solid kind of musical transition. I'm glad that the drums are definitely at the forefront of it. You can definitely tell that that was the main focus of this track in particular. And I think this track definitely has those sort of transit vibes to it. If you're a big fan of transit, I feel like there's a few tracks off this record that kind of have that sort of transit vibe to it as well. I don't know what type of genre they would be considered under. I think they definitely have that sort of indie rock vibe to it. So I really enjoy that. I think instrumentally, it's really solid as well. Just keeping with the super solid instrumental tracks. And I'm also liking the vocals in the bridge. I don't know if it's maybe one of the guitar players or just another member of the band, but I like the difference of the of like the backing vocals. I think that they definitely need to utilize that in the next record. I like the balance between the two, and if they could even harmonize together, that would be awesome. But I really enjoyed this track overall. So we'll move it into track number four, which is Atlantic. This is one of the singles. I believe is the first single they released a music video with this one as well. Right off the bat, one of my favorite tracks off the record, without a doubt. I'm really loving the additional layering on this track. It has like some piano, and just has a bunch of different sort of instruments throughout, and just the vibes of it just makes it sound very full, and it's just a great sort of single track that they released. Absolutely, really liking the vocals in this track. I feel like with a few of these tracks, they kind of lack that sort of like character to their vocals. But I feel like this one in particular, definitely he stepped up his game without a doubt. It almost has that sort of Parker Canyon sort of rasp to it, which I really enjoy. I love when that comes out. I'm a big sort of raspy voice, not like crazy raspy, but I do like when it has that sort of definition to it. The chorus sounds huge and it is really freaking catchy, which I enjoy. And I also enjoy the slowdown in the bridge. I think the addition again of extra instruments like shakers and piano and stuff like that just kind of add to the overall mood of this track. And I really enjoyed that this was one of the singles off their record. So we'll move into track number five, which is Forever Yours. This one also has this sort of yellow card feel to it, even though it's kind of more in the vocal styling, I would say instrumentally. Maybe a little bit, because I know Yellow Card did a few acoustic records, so it definitely has that sort of Yellow Card vibe to it. I really like a good sort of love song track, especially this one. I think this one's a really solid one right off the bat. And I also enjoy just stripped back sort of tracks. I feel like it gives a good representation of the band and just also diversity as well. That they're able to write kind of softer, slower songs, but also have some like heavier tracks, which I'll elaborate on a little bit later. But they also have these sort of acoustic vibes, which I think is always a great piece to any sort of album. And I think towards the end of this track in particular, I like the addition of strings and keys. They kind of balance out the whole track, and it kind of adds this sort of fullness to it that otherwise, if it wasn't in there, it wouldn't have that sort of fullness to it. Also, the additional of harmonies and just layered vocals in general in the track kind of add that overall ambience to it as well. So I really think this is a solid track as well. So we'll move it into track number 6, which is Beautiful Things. This one is the second single, I believe, that they released, and is another one of my favorites. Really digging the cool intro with the keys and the vocals. I think that was a really interesting sort of start, but I really enjoyed it. And then it kind of kicks in and it has this sort of it has this sort of flow to it, like this ebb and flow, almost like an ocean. It does have those high points where it's just like really hitting you, and sometimes it just kind of lowers down and has a sort of soft moment. So it's a nice balance between those two. I'm really loving the chorus in this track in particular, and I feel like these vocals definitely have that sort of conviction behind it. And a few of these tracks, I felt like I wouldn't say that he went crazy. It just doesn't feel like there was too much backing with it. But overall, I feel like on a lot of these tracks, he's done a really good job of kind of putting that emphasis on it. And I'm really liking the heaviness of this bridge. I like that they kind of have that sort of heavy tinge to them. And there's a few tracks that I'm going to be getting into that have that sort of, I would say, almost like post-hardcore, not like crazy heavy, but definitely those sort of vibes to it, which I really enjoy. And then I like that the bridge kind of leads into a softer sort of end as well. And then just overall leads into the next track. It has kind of like this almost like outro sort of a thing, and then it kind of leads into the seventh track, which is Mum, one of my favorite tracks as well. It has this sort of like cool vibes to it, almost like indie vibes to it, which I really enjoy. The vocals in the second verse are killer paired with the vocalist of Grayscale. I think that, again, like I mentioned previously, I like the difference between the two vocalists that they had, especially since one of them does backing vocals primarily and the other one does, just the vocals of the thing. So I really like that balance. I feel like if they were to do a next record, I feel like I would love to see some more of the second vocalist and just maybe more harmonies and stuff of that nature. This one definitely has that more aggressive tone, as I was talking about. Not like crazy heavy, but you can definitely tell they're going into that more like almost post-hardcore vibe to it as well. And then the bridge goes in, like I said, it has that just aggressive sort of post-hardcore-ness to it, which I really can't explain properly, but if you listen to the tracks, when you listen to the album, you'll understand what I mean, hopefully. But it has just this sort of, I guess, this heavier vibe to it, which I really enjoy, and I like that direction as well. I do like that they have softer tracks and they can kind of do those like emotional sort of things with that, but I also really love that they have some heavier tracks. So there is a nice variety, like I mentioned previously, and they kind of cover all bases in terms of that. So we'll move it into track number 8, which is Fever Dream, another one of my favorite tracks. Really liking the guitar and bass riffs that they are using, and especially in the intro and the verse, especially the first verse. I like that they have this sort of almost matching sort of vibe to it, but they just balance out very well together. And I think that's always, solid songwriting skills at heart. So I really enjoy that. I also enjoy that this one, again, is in that more heavier sort of range as well. It has a sort of darker element to it. And then it kind of just has this emotion attached to it as well. So I feel like just all of those things combined just add that sort of heaviness to it that I really enjoy. The vocals in the bridge are cool as well. Again, I like that the two vocals are coming together in this track. Like I mentioned previously, I feel like that's just a super solid mood on Grayscale's part, without a doubt. So that's why I enjoyed Fever Dream. So we'll move it into track number 9, which is Echoes, Carry On. Another one of my favorite tracks off this record. Loving the sort of indie rock vibes of this track. It has almost, I would say, transit vibes as well on this one as well. But really enjoy that. The vocals, again, really remind me a lot of Ryan Key. It has those sort of yellow card vibes as well, which certainly isn't a bad thing. We obviously we lost yellow card this past year, so it would certainly be cool to have a band that kind of fills that void for me. I know they won't permanently fill it, but it definitely will have that sort of yellow card vibes to it. And I feel like this track is definitely one of the more catchier tracks off the record, and it just has great instrumentals to kind of back it. Definitely think this one is one of the more solid tracks, and obviously one of my favorites. And I was just vibing out to it, so I really enjoyed that one. So we'll move it into track number 10, which is Slept. Again, this one has more transit vibes to it as well. I'm really liking the fingerpick guitar slash the riff that he's playing. It really has that sort of like indie sort of homey sort of vibe to it, which I really enjoy. Really enjoying the harmonies in the pre-chorus. I think that's a really solid look on their part. This definitely has those sort of chill vibes to it. Just one that you could probably drive to. I think this whole record is a great record to just drive to as well. It has that sort of that car ride sort of vibe to it, which I really enjoy. The guitar solo was a nice touch and definitely was a cool addition to this track, most definitely. And I felt like vocally, performance wise, is pretty straightforward. Nothing too really special, wasn't too anything too out of the way, but it was just a really good sort of straightforward track. So we'll move it into the last track, track number 11. If I Ever See You Again is the most recent single and one of my favorites as well. To me, it has this sort of like almost like Irish vibe to it. I don't know if anybody else got that, but definitely has that sort of like Irish tinge to it, which I don't mind. I think that's a really cool little touch on them, and if they could expound upon that on the next record, that would definitely be cool. Again, getting with the Irish vibes, I think it definitely has this sort of swing and just groove to it. Unlike a lot of the other tracks on this record, it just has this sort of unique swing to it. Not saying that tracks off this record don't have that sort of swing to it, but this one definitely has this sort of like swing to it. I don't really know how to explain it, but really enjoyed the chorus. I think it's really catchy. And I think the guitar leads in this track in particular will definitely get in your head. I know it's gotten to my head, so that's how I know. Vocally wise, it's definitely in that same vein of Ryan Key of Yellow Card as well. And then it just has this sort of anthematic feel to it, especially towards the end with the last outro sort of part. There's a lot of gang vocals and stuff like that, so it has that sort of like swingy, sort of like anthematic feel to it. And I think it's definitely a great closer track. Probably one of my favorite closer tracks of the year so far. It just finishes so well, and it has finishes with so much energy to it. And it definitely makes you want to come back and listen to it again. So that's definitely a plus on their part. So I'm gonna get into some pros and cons. Pros, I think it's definitely good to hear this band. I definitely think they have vibes that I enjoy. Bands like Transit, bands like Yellow Card, even a little bit of Mayday Parade, and probably I feel like in the little story so far as well. I throw them in there as well. So it definitely kind of bounces around between like indie rock, pop punk. Even some like post-hardcore, like some like lighter post-hardcore. I call it diet post-hardcore maybe. But definitely has those sorts of vibes, and I feel like if you like any of those sorts of genres, you definitely will get your worth out of it, especially in this album. Again, with the feature from Patty, I think he did a really great job. I think that's definitely a plus on their part. I think he sounded great. I think they meshed very well together. Any cons, I'd probably say that in some parts vocally it feels a little bit lackluster, but I think a lot of these tracks they make up for it. Tracks like Atlantic, tracks like Let It Rain, If I Ever See You Again, and more to be named. But definitely they have some tracks that are a little bit more uplifting in terms of that. But overall, for being kind of a quote unquote new band, I know they did release a record unsigned, but for most people, they are a new band. I think they did a really excellent job, and I feel like a lot of fans of people on Fearless or people on Hopeless or people on pure noise. I feel like there's definitely things that people can get out of this band for sure. So my overall rating for Grayscale's Adornment, I'm going to be giving it an 8.8 out of 10. I definitely think it's one that you should check out. If the tour comes through your area, definitely go check that out as well. I'm sure they would appreciate the support. I know they just went up to Canada pretty recently, so if you live in the Canada, or if you live anywhere on this tour, I would definitely recommend going out to check them out. I think they played very well live, and I feel like they kept very true to what you hear on the record. So let me know in the comments what your thoughts are on all the singles like Atlantic. I'm trying to think of the other one, but it's slipping my head. Beautiful Things, and If I Ever See You Again. Let me know what your thoughts are on all three of those singles, and what your thoughts are on the record as a whole. Do you think that, it will keep to the singles? If not, what do you think of the record when it comes out? The record definitely comes out this Friday, May the 5th, I believe. I'll definitely correct if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's May the 5th. So, definitely go check it out if you can pre-order it. Certainly, I know they would appreciate it. So, let me know in the comments just what your thoughts are on this whole band. If you've heard of them, if you haven't heard of them, certainly would like to know. So, thank you guys for checking out my review. My name is Brandon, and we hope you got your fix, and we'll be talking with you soon. Peace. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Of course, if you enjoy what we do, make sure to go check out the other series we do. We do album reviews, we do band interviews, and we do live videos, so definitely go check that out. Hit that subscribe button. It really helps out our channel, helps us grow. Make sure to hit that like button as well. Go follow us on social media. That's all down below. We try to keep that as updated as possible. We also made a new website where we'll be posting photos of upcoming concerts and stuff like that, which you can go check out at audioaddictionmedia.com, and come get your fix with us, guys. Talk to you later. Deuces.